All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live event today. We are joined by the one and only Brian Feenie, who I'm thrilled to introduce today. He is the president of ShiftLogic, the industry's first digital services representative firm, and with the mission to assist companies in integrating technology into their operations. ShiftLogic represents the cutting edge of HVAC service and innovation, and Brian is going to be the expert today to walk us through how to integrate technology, how to integrate and really build trust on site with your homeowners on every step of the journey. His experience spans many different places, including MeasureQuick, Service Titan, ACA, you name it, he's been there, and he could not be a better expert to speak about selling inside the home with these tools today. So over to you, Brian. Brian's going to give a 10 to 15 minute introduction about some of the concepts, and then we're going to move into Q&A. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Shelby. I appreciate it. So the magic of the home walkthrough, spent many years doing in-home sales in the HVAC industry. And one thing I noticed, even when I was doing this, I didn't have a whole lot of great tools to do my job well. And I'm afraid that the status quo is still the same. And typically you get to the house, you talk to the customer, you pet the dog. You're usually up against the time constraint of them getting dinner on the table or soccer practice or whatever it may be. And you've got an hour to build trust, and to the point of that homeowner, your potential customer, opening up their wallet and spending $15,000 to $20,000. And a lot of the time we'll go down into the basement, up in the attic with our trusty tape measure and flashlight. We'll take our measurements, take some pictures, and then at that point we're presenting, the ultimate ticket for the customer, where most of the time they're not informed. They are shocked usually by the sticker price. And then meanwhile, you're trying to build trust and rapport, and you're running out of time. And, I lived that over and over again. So I started to do some other tactics of, how do I price condition a customer within the first 5 minutes of my visit? Just so I can, get them calmed down to the point of being able to listen to the value that I'm there to deliver, the trust in the company, how many, millions of years we've been in business, what type of experience we have, what others are saying, kind of that brag book scenario. And, using those tools at the time, you feel that that's what you have to do. Those are the things that you have to bring to your job every day and to every customer visit, and then just expect them to trust you enough to make the decision. And then usually you're challenged to the point where you might not have all key decision makers in the same room at the same time. Therefore, the sales process will extend past that one visit and possibly prolong for weeks, months, or never. So, there's a lot of good tools and good technology out today that I feel really help bridge that gap and help deliver a ton more value than what we've done in the past, to the point where I've designed a selling framework around technology that I call Truth. And I'll quickly break down what that means. So Truth consists of testing, reporting, understanding, thoroughness, and honesty. It's a lot to roll off, but it's all meaningful in how you tie in technology to, provide that, value delivery to the customer. To give you an example of testing. So what would I test as a in-home sales consultant? There's a great tool by TEC called the TrueFlow Grid that doesn't take a lot of time to deploy and allows a sales consultant to actually measure the duct system of the home. And that's important testing, right? Because especially if I'm chasing the electrification money that's out there, or driving towards heat pump in certain climates, there's different requirements for duct sizing for heat pumps than there are from gas furnace system with air conditioning. So if we just go and put a heat pump in an existing house that has gas furnace and AC, well, guess what? There's a high likelihood that that system's not going to work properly. So if I can provide value during my visit, well, now I've got everyone on the same page, all the way back to the installation crew in the service department at the company I work for, because now I'm not causing callbacks and problems for a customer because we didn't do our due diligence or provide that extra value that doesn't take a lot of time to do. So to think about when I show up to the home now and I have that same hour of time, how would I do it differently to provide a better experience for the customer? Another key part of testing that I'm a big fan of is using the Conduit load calc software and being able to know that that house, the system is sized properly for the home. When I sold, I would only do a load calculation if I needed a permit. I never did it on every job. Shame on me. As you learn over the years and see, the technology that's come out, it's a lot easier to do these types of things at the front end of the sales experience for the customer. And, a lot of folks I've talked to in the past have said, well, why should anybody care? Nobody cares about a load calculation. Well, I think we have to control the narrative a bit and educate the customer on why that's so important, especially when we look at how pricing has increased on equipment, labor has increased. Everything's just become more expensive in their world and in our world as well. So, this testing piece is critical for long-term customer retention and sentiment. So two very easy to implement tools that are there in the market today and available for folks to embrace. The reporting side, walking in with an example of a Measure Quick Pro report, an ACA QI certificate, the Conduit load calc, homeowner presentation, the TEC True Flow Grid reading, all that reporting means something. It's showing the customer that you can actually prove that the work you do is at the highest level. So again, we're creating value. We're creating value with the testing. We're creating value with the reporting. And now let's get into understanding. So understanding is actually something that I've been putting a lot of thought into for the customer. We can do some education and help them understand this process even before we get to the door. You look at tools like Eden, which is a sales enablement tool that can educate the customer on their equipment sizing, the rebates available in their market, the pricing, the budget. If I was a comfort consultant walking into the home today and I knew the customer already priced out a system, I already know what their budget is. I don't have to spend that time in the home now dancing around that conversation of, oh, well, what's your budget? What did you think it was going to cost? All of that time that you would spend doing that, now you can actually do ahead of time before you get to the home. You make it a proactive part of the sales process with the customer. And then with the load calculations, the ACA certificates, things like that are helping that customer understand what they should expect from an HVAC company. I see it all the time on local Facebook groups in my community where everyone asks the same question every week. I need a local reputable HVAC company. And it's just an endless amount of companies. And I feel bad for the person asking the question because now they're faced with, I have to pick from 20 different people. How do I know what I should expect? No one's really driving the narrative on what to expect from an HVAC business today. And I think there's a lot of work we can do to make it better for people. And also, the outcome for the HVAC company is higher profits. Let's face it. The more value you add, the more money you can make. Thoroughness, everything I talk about, all these technologies combined will portray the thoroughness of what you're there to do. That home walkthrough should be a walkthrough. Treat it like an inspection. Go around the house, understand the home, understand the needs of the customer. Do they really understand what they should be expecting? That's our job as comfort consultants in the home. We're there to educate. Now, yeah, technology, there might be some things you have to do, touching the duct system, putting some probes here and there, but it can all be taught and it all be learned. So when you think about, oh, well, that's not my job, I'm a salesperson. Well, I think we need to raise our game a little bit and really drive value to the customer at this point, because with the economy being as uncertain as it is, we're coming into an election year soon, and you've got folks that are just holding on to that money. So if you don't have a ton of value to deliver on that call, you're likely not going to see that customer again. And then at the end of truth is honesty, full transparency. That education process with using all the tools, the digital technology to do that, even before you get to the door, during and after, and how you follow up, all provides a level of transparency that typically doesn't exist in our industry. I've been doing this 30 years, and we all still play poker with our pricing, even though the internet's a big place and it's very easy to find out an approximate cost of HVAC equipment. So why not participate? Why not be proactive and provide that full transparency so that the customer at the end of the day, the one with the money, the one that we're trying to win, feels good about the decision? Because every contractor I've ever talked to in this industry over the years, the biggest important part of what they look for is a meaningful relationship with their customer. So a meaningful relationship with your customer can be accomplished through following this methodology, and especially in the transparency side of this. That's where we truly build that long-term trust and really leverage lifetime value of a customer. So, to me, that is something that I feel we have a huge opportunity in this industry to achieve. The tools are now there. Now, you don't necessarily have to use all the tools that I just mentioned, but personally, those are ones that I've handpicked to represent in my business, and I feel that they bring a ton of value to the marketplace. Now, sure, there's going to be others, which is a great thing to think about, right? That means our industry is moving forward, and we have options and support and forward direction that this can be the way business is done. So that's my little spiel on that walkthrough. Shelby, what questions are going through your mind right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, what do you think some of the biggest, you touched on some of them, right? It's building that relationship with the customer. It's trying to showcase and help them understand difficult to understand topics. What are some of the biggest challenges that you currently see sales team members facing in the home?
I think they're getting lumped into being like the others. So most homeowners that I've dealt with, and most companies that I work with today, and even sales teams, is you're guilty by association. Our industry is very low on the trust scale, in the trades. And so if I'm one of four estimates on the table and we're all within a couple $1,000s of each other, which one do I pick? It's hard to be memorable. That's the biggest challenge, I would say, is how do you truly be memorable in the process? And it can come down to even before you get there. And a lot of companies aren't utilizing the power of education and, I'll call it, sales enablement, for a generic term of how do I condition, if I know the customer has a budget of $15,000 and they built their own system and it's pretty close to reality, well, then I can spend more time being memorable, because I took away one of the biggest things. And when I've done sales training and coaching in the past, one of the big things I would always bring up is, until you deliver a price to the customer, they don't listen to a word you say. And I've had a lot of folks confirm that exact statement, because they're nervous. They don't know what to expect. So now they're like, oh, What do you mean $15,000? What do you mean $20,000? I thought this was going to be a $5,000 job.
How do you overcome that in the home, right? Like you need time on site to build value, to show that you're different. But if the homeowner's sitting there and they're like anxious for the price, which don't get me wrong, I'm anxious too. I feel that same way anytime I'm quoted anything. I'm like, just tell me. And I'm one of those people who email, I'm like, can you tell me the price? And of course, like that gives no chance to build value. And so I'm curious, what are some of the techniques that the best sales pros are using to help overcome that like underlying anxiety that homeowner is facing in the home?
Oh, I mean, I'll talk about what I used to do. In the first 5 minutes, as I'm walking down the steps with the homeowner into a basement, to look at their HVAC system that they've probably only looked at a couple times in their life, because it's not where you go and hang out. And I would try to condition them to the point of saying, well, just to give you an idea of a modern day equivalent to what you have, you're probably looking at this price range. So I'm doing that within the first 5 minutes before I ever do the, please hold the dumb end of the tape measure so that I can involve you in the process. And that would tend to work to the best of my ability at that time. I didn't have many tools to be able to really drive a ton of value. And then the same thing also exists for financing. When do you bring up financing to a customer? That's one of the biggest challenges. A lot of companies don't even offer financing, which boggles my mind, because when you think about how consumers buy everything else in their life, we're not meeting them where they already are. So there's a lot to learn just being consumers ourselves. Like, how do we buy? And sometimes how we buy might not be how we should present to the customer either, because we're providing limiting beliefs and also defining what that sales experience should be, and instead of letting the customer buy. There's an old adage that I've heard over my career, and it's, customers don't like to be sold, but they like to buy. So the easier you make it for them to buy, the better outcome you're going to see. So truly, when you think about tools, even in that early part of the price conditioning that I would do walking down the steps, I would also be talking about financing. Oh, by the way, just so you know, in case you were interested, I do have some special promotions going on with some financing, because you have to be careful with that. If you present it wrong, you're going to imply that the customer can't afford what you're about to tell them. And then they already discount, their feelings on you. So now you just lost trust.
Absolutely. I mean, first off, I don't know who could just pay cash for a new $20,000 system right off the bat. But more power to them. And I think that, you raised such an interesting point about like, how are you really making this conversational, actually, making it, like, by the way, like, we do offer some really cool financing deals. Like, by the way, like this type of system is currently going for something like this. We'll talk about all of your options, but I do just want to like compare apples to apples as closely as we can. And I love that language because it's trying to make it more accessible and also positions you maybe not in such an adversarial position. I think to your point around like people do not want to be sold to, I've experienced this myself working in sales. It's people do not like when you're not focused on sales, you actually have a really better chance at building a relationship, which then is also more likely to convert into sales, or at least transparency about like what your level of effort on site should be or what your engagement should be like. And so it's super powerful. I'm curious if you found that like the technology and tools that you work with are helpful to like customize that experience to the customer, helpful to deliver on not only those trust goals, but also facilitate that in-home sales engagement.
Yeah. I mean, so like, if like Eden, for an example, if I could proactively, if a customer calls in, yeah, I'd like to get an estimate on a new system. I know my air conditioner is great. By the way, we have you set up for this Friday for an appointment with Danny. In the meantime, here's a link. Go on and play around, build your own system, see what rebates are available, get an idea of what you think you might like, it's aligned with pricing that I would be pitching anyway. So there's no surprise of, oh, yeah, that price, that's not applicable. Like your house is going to cost more. It really provides that transparency and education and price conditioning well before that person knocks on the front door. So now what do I do? Well, now I'm in the home. Okay, great. I see that you played around with our quoting tool. That's great. Any questions about that? While I'm here, there are some important things I need to make sure that we check in the home for you. One is we need to make sure that whatever system that we do put in is sized properly for your home. And I'm going to need your help to do that. Oh, help? Yeah, this is a group participation. Why am I doing that? I'm building trust. I'm building rapport. They're part of the solution. Usually in the world of HVAC, the average consumer is afraid. They don't understand. How do you make an educated decision when you don't understand what you're buying? And then you're trusting someone that you met for just an hour, and you have to make a decision. Like, it's no wonder they get 4 estimates now. It's no wonder they start to get confused and pick the lowest price one just because they don't know what else to do, right? So if I can get some of the 30 minutes of an hour call out of the way before I even knock on the door, that's a huge win. If I can do a conduit load calc in 5 minutes and truly help the customer understand, and maybe I give them the iPad and let them scan some rooms and be a part of it and understand, like, oh, wow, the other company didn't do that. Well, if they didn't do that, how do you know what they're actually going to put in? And so trust, I just want a trust point. If you think of this tally happening in the background, you got these trust points that are coming every time you do leverage these tools. And then on top of it, oh, I see that you picked the heat pump system. Why is that? Oh, I want to eventually go solar, or I want to do certain things and save energy. Great. But because you want to do that, let's make sure that your duct system's sized properly. It's need a few minutes. Would you mind helping me? Again, make it a participatory event, building trust, educating, and now that first 30 minutes that I would waste on price conditioning and helping guide the customer towards a purchase, I can now spend doing meaningful things that build a ton more trust, a ton of value, also help my company that I work for, because now I'm not setting them up for failure because we put a system in that doesn't work properly. And now I've got the next 30 minutes of that call to actually be conversational, like we said, and really get them comfortable to the point where they probably won't get other estimates.
This is my favorite thing about, something we're really committed to at Conduit, but some things that I really love about what MeasureQuick does, for example. It's about building value with quality work. And I think that it's work, as you said, that like you hand off to your install team, they are happy with you. Your management is happy with you because they actually know what's going on in that home. And I think that's where we see such an opportunity, right? Because everyone is committed to doing a good job. Everyone is committed to doing high quality work, but it's more about how can you use this as a way to engage your homeowner so you can also get the results that your entire team cares about, which is making that sale in the first place. On that note, I mean, you raise a lot of different things that you can be doing inside the home. How do you balance the need to be thorough in your assessments with the pressure to minimize that time on site? Or, I mean, the reality that, to do a whole home evaluation, you might be on site for a day, which nobody can do, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, being thorough, you can leverage the tools that we were talking about and have a very step-by-step process on how to approach the home. I mean, if you truly leverage sales enablement ahead of time, right? Educate that customer ahead of time, price condition them ahead of time. Well, now I've got 60 minutes to do some very important things that my competitors usually aren't willing to do, right? So that showing that thoroughness leads right into that full transparency, that honesty. I can display and show the type of company we are, the type of person I am by doing these things. and being thorough, because I guarantee you that the competitors that aren't going to invest in the resources that are available and take the time to do the right thing, they're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and like I even remember one of the companies I worked for, we would typically not give any pictures to the install crew if we sold a job. We would give them some drawings on paper. Well, a drawing on paper is, up to interpretation. But if I take a picture and I used an iPad program where I could just pinch out and put an actual measurement there, I would turn that in with the job every time. Now my crew knows exactly what they're walking into before they ever leave the shop to go to the job. Something as simple as that, you would have thought I reinvented the wheel. And it was just a tool that I knew that, well, I'm not going to be, if I'm held accountable for selling this job, I don't need to be the one getting beat up by the install crew, because if you've ever gone to a company meeting at an HVAC company, the installers love to pick on the salespeople because they feel that the salespeople put them in harm's way and have to do extra work. And it tends to be the vibe in a lot of companies. So I was like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. I'm going to take that extra step and I'm going to give them what they want. That's how you make a harmonious team. But it was something so simple that actually, when I was running an HVAC business here, I required it for my sales team to do it because it was just the right thing to do, right? It was a process. Let's work together better. And it shows our customer that we're actually taking some care into making it right. Because when a customer sees that you're using an iPad and you can, oh, see, look, I'm taking these measurements and I send these to the installation crew. So when they get here next week, again, I'm assuming the sale, when they get here next week, you didn't buy it yet. But when we get here, they're going to have all the correct measurements for your job. So that, like, all those things just are indicative of being thorough. And, technology, yeah, some would say, as they're listening to this, webinar today, are thinking, oh, that's just a dog and pony show. Customers really don't care about that. I would beg to differ. When you think of the automobile industry and the transparency that a lot of dealerships use, when your car's on the lift, I talk about this all the time in my presentations of how I'm in the waiting room for my car and all of a sudden I get a text on my phone showing me my car on the lift with the technician communicating to me with transparency that maybe my tires are low, or maybe I need to pay attention to my brake life or a leak. So if I get that at my car dealership, I would I'd be pretty cool with having that at any experience I have, because now that's set an expectation that I should now expect from other service providers. And as a reminder, the HVAC industry, we are service providers, just like the auto mechanic, and the auto mechanics use technology more than we do. So we need to catch up. And luckily, the technology is finally in a spot in our industry that you can embrace it and you can implement and you can differentiate your business and really deliver that value. And I think that's, I've met some of the most old school young people in my career recently, because they're taught by the way it's always been. And that's okay, right? There's some merit to that. There's a lot of successful companies have managed to get this far without a whole lot of technology in their business. But when we look at the skilled labor gap, and Shelby, we were talking about this before the call, like when you look at the technology you're raised on, and the younger generations are, my daughter, she's 20, she was raised on technology. Why send her backwards in her career and say, no, let's get back to pen and paper, that's where it's really at? No, you don't do that. You need to embrace and meet them where they are. Like I keep saying is, if you want to attract more people or better people into your business, you got to have the right tools in place. Make it attractive, make it fun, make it, I didn't really come on here to talk about the labor shortage, but this kind of coincides. We've got customers at MeasureQuick as an example that are using some of this technology I talked about and attracting talent from outside of the industry. One of our MeasureQuick customers is actually hiring technicians from the local cable company or Xerox, which is amazing, right? Because they have the right attitude. They can talk to people. They can build trust. They can be thorough. You give them the right tools, magic happens. And that kind of keys into the magic of the home walkthrough. You can create magic. I truly believe that. And with that framework I was discussing, that's one of my missions, is to help companies get there, because I feel that it's attainable.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge amount of change that's happening in the industry right now, and it's super exciting. And with that, one question is, what innovations or changes are you most excited about? There's clearly the impact of them, but when you look ahead, like, what are some of the things, whether it be trends or whatever it is, that you are most excited about?
I'm most excited about, the how companies leverage technology for commissioning and service, like software like MeasureQuick as an example. Like, when you look at how many companies use it and how many don't use it, I don't know how you can truly run a business and not really be zeroed in on your callback percentages. Tools that are very simple to use are not being used. I'm excited to see more adoption of that, and that things like that becoming the standard. Things like ACA, what they're doing with their quality installation certificates, proving, as a contractor, you can actually prove that you do the best work in your market. What Conduit's doing with load calc. I mean, it's finally making it something that the consumer can understand. And you're just getting started with that. A lot of these things are truly foundational for the future of this industry. So I'm excited to see that continue to build. New technology, I think there's a lot of road ahead for monitoring systems and being able to do remote diagnostics and monitoring. And there's still a lot of work to be done there. And we always hear about IoT, smart devices. I still see contractors struggle with selling smart thermostats in a home, even though you and I would probably say, well, what do you mean? Like, that's pretty standard in our worlds. But, at this point, I think it's more about, you take a look at your business right now, and as an HVAC company, and say, well, where am I today? Where was I yesterday? Where am I going tomorrow? And seeing that there could be a better way of doing things. I've got a good friend in this industry down in South Florida that, he's a young guy, came up through the industry, learned the old school way of doing things, and knew that there had to be a better way to get it done. So he was adopting technology 5 years ago when he started his business, because he did not want to do it the same old way that's been done. In my career for 30 years, it hasn't changed. You could still do HVAC the way it was done 30 years ago today. But our consumer has changed. So I think that's really the biggest, like, what I'm excited about is helping companies connect with their customer and meeting them where they are. I think that's the biggest opportunity for HVAC companies to embrace right now. And you don't have to do all of the things we talked about, even if you just did some of them. And a lot may already do some of them. But when you think about, selling with truth, I mean, that's pretty powerful, because it does mean something, and it is meaningful for everyone involved. The sales consultant, because they'll sell more. The consumer, because they get the best possible experience and value for their dollar. And then the company, because the company is more profitable, because there's less wasted time, there's less confusion. To me, it's a win-win-win all the way through. I just hope that there's more technology to come.
I actually could not think of a better note to end on. So, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time today. This is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with the audience.
Thanks, Shelby.